Alice had always been a dreamer. In her tiny apartment on the edge of a city that never slept, she found her escape in the glow of her phone screen. TikTok wasn't just an app for her, it was an open door to a world where she could be someone else, someone bigger than life. Her dance routines, quirky edits, and flirtations with viral trends earned her thousands of followers. To her, every like, every comment, every share felt like a step closer to being noticed, to mattering in a world oversaturated with voices screaming for attention. But it wasn't enough. Alice wanted more. The thrill of popularity was an addiction, the kind that left her scrolling through analytics at 3 a.m. with a mix of satisfaction and dread. Every spike in views was a high, every drop a pit in her stomach. Then one night, as the clock crept past midnight and shadows stretched long across her bedroom walls, she stumbled upon it, a video unlike any she'd seen before. It had no music, no captions, no hashtags. The profile picture of the uploader was a void of static, the username a string of gibberish. The video itself was simple, a person, their face obscured by a mask that looked handmade, its eyes hollowed out and black. They stood in a dimly lit room, holding a small object, a pocket mirror, toward the camera. The figure tilted the mirror, reflecting light that seemed to pulse in time with Alice's heartbeat. And then text appeared at the bottom of the screen, stark white against the gloom. Do this, and they'll see you too. Alice stared at the video, her thumb hovering over the screen. It wasn't flashy or funny or even scary, but it called to her, a whisper in the back of her mind telling her that this was the kind of thing that could go viral. She didn't hesitate long. Within hours, Alice had recreated the video down to the eerie tilt of the mirror and the dim lighting. She uploaded it with no caption, no hashtags, just like the original. Then she set her phone down, a nervous flutter in her chest. By the time she woke up, her video had already crossed 100,000 views. The comments flooded in, some praising her creativity, others joking about the creepiness of the trend. But a few stood out, sending chills through her veins. You shouldn't have done that. It's watching now. You can't stop. Alice tried to shake it off. Trolls, she thought. Just people messing around. But as the days passed, something began to change. Her videos took on a life of their own. Every time she filmed herself, strange things crept into the footage. Shadows moved where there shouldn't have been any. Shapes flickered in the background, just out of focus. Once, while editing a clip, she swore she saw a hand reach toward her from the corner of the screen. And the comments grew stranger, more insistent. Keep going. You're almost there. Don't stop now. Alice's follower count exploded. She was the talk of TikTok, her face and videos plastered across countless reaction channels and fan pages. Yet with every surge in fame, the dread gnawing at her stomach deepened. Then came the messages. They appeared on her phone at random, even when it was locked. A single line over and over again, from no number she could trace. You started. You can't stop. Alice tried to ignore the messages at first. She told herself it was just some twisted prank, the price of her newfound fame. But the messages didn't stop. If anything, they multiplied. They would appear while she was scrolling through her feed, in her email, and even as push notifications from apps she didn't remember downloading. One night her phone buzzed incessantly, the screen lighting up in rapid succession. You started. You can't stop. You'll see. Her heart hammered in her chest. She shut her phone off and tossed it onto the couch, as if that could stop whatever was happening. But then, from the corner of her eye, she saw something. A flash of movement, quick and wrong. She turned her head sharply toward the dim hallway leading to her bedroom. Nothing. Alice forced a laugh, shaking her head. Get it together, she muttered, but her voice sounded too loud in the silent room. She decided to call it a night and headed to bed, determined to leave her phone and her growing paranoia behind. But sleep didn't come easy. The darkness in her apartment felt heavier than usual, pressing against her like a damp cloth. Shadows seemed to stretch and shift along the walls, moving in ways the faint glow from her nightlight couldn't explain. She kept telling herself it was all in her head, that she was just overtired from the late nights of editing and posting, until she heard the knock. It was faint at first, so soft she thought she imagined it. Then it came again, 3 sharp taps against her bedroom window. Alice froze. She lived on the 3rd floor. Her breath caught in her throat as she turned her head slowly toward the window. The curtains were drawn, but she could see a faint outline against the fabric. A shape. A person. The knocks came again, harder this time, rattling the glass. Alice didn't scream. She couldn't. Her body felt locked in place, her limbs frozen with a terror so intense it was almost physical. The figure outside the window tilted its head, as if studying her, and then it spoke. Not aloud, but inside her mind, a voice that echoed and scraped against her thoughts. "You can't stop now." The voice was cold, mechanical, and distant, like it came from a place far beyond her comprehension. And then, as suddenly as it had appeared, the figure was gone. The next morning, Alice awoke with her phone in her hand, though she didn't remember retrieving it. The screen was unlocked, and a new video was queued up, ready to be posted. She stared at it, her pulse quickening. It was her. In the video, she was standing in her dimly lit living room, holding the mirror from the trend. But this time, her face was blank, her eyes glassy, as if she weren't fully awake. In the reflection of the mirror, something moved. A shadow, long and spindly, with too many limbs, crawling across the ceiling behind her. Her finger hovered over the post button. She didn't remember recording the video, but she felt an overwhelming compulsion to upload it. Her chest tightened, and her breath came in short gasps. "No," she whispered. "This isn't me. This isn't right." But her hand moved on its own, pressing the button. The video went live. Within minutes, her phone began to vibrate uncontrollably, notifications flooding in at an impossible rate. Comments, likes, shares, all faster than anything she'd ever experienced. But the comments were different this time. "You're part of it now. It's too late. Do you see it yet?" Alice threw her phone across the room, the screen cracking as it hit the wall. She backed into the corner, her knees trembling, tears streaming down her face. She felt it now, the presence in the room with her. It was behind her. Slowly, as if compelled by a force she couldn't resist, Alice turned her head. The thing standing in her living room was impossibly tall, its limbs twisted and elongated like broken branches. Its face was a void, an emptiness that seemed to swallow the dim light. And yet in the center of that void, something shimmered, a reflection. Her own face staring back at her, but warped and distorted, a grotesque mockery of her expression. The figure raised a hand, its long, jagged fingers pointing directly at her phone. Alice understood the message without words. Keep posting. She wanted to scream, to run, to fight, but she could do none of those things. Her legs moved on their own, carrying her toward the phone. She picked it up, her cracked screen glowing faintly in the gloom. The next video was already there, ready to be uploaded. And so it continued. Days turned into weeks, and Alice became a prisoner of her own viral fame. Her follower count soared into the millions, but she no longer cared. Each video was worse than the last, the shadows creeping closer, the figures in the background growing clearer. The comments weren't from people anymore. They couldn't be. Her life outside the screen dissolved. She stopped going out, stopped eating, stopped sleeping. Her world became the endless loop of filming, posting, and watching as the darkness spread. And still, the messages came. You started. You can't stop. One night, Alice's phone buzzed with a notification unlike any she'd seen before. It was a live stream request from the void-like profile of the original video. Her trembling finger accepted the request. The screen went black, and then a single line of text appeared. Let them all see. Alice screamed, but no one was there to hear her. The screen on Alice's phone flickered to life, but what she saw wasn't her reflection or her room. It was them. Millions of faces, staring back at her from an endless void, their expressions a mix of horror and fascination. Some faces were familiar, her followers, influencers she had envied, even people she thought she'd seen in passing on the street. They weren't watching her, they were trapped. The blackness behind them shifted and churned, like storm clouds boiling over an endless abyss. And from that darkness, the thing emerged, its limbs long and spider-like, its body a grotesque mass of writhing shadows. The void where its face should have been now shimmered with countless reflections of Alice, each one distorted, screaming silently. The thing's voice poured into her mind again, but this time it wasn't just words. It was a torrent of memories, pain, and longing. "You're one of us now." Alice felt herself being pulled into the phone. Her body didn't move, but her mind, the core of who she was being dragged, pixel by pixel, into the void. She clawed at her temples, desperate to stay grounded, but the pull was relentless. Her apartment dissolved around her, replaced by the cold, crushing darkness of the thing's domain. The last tether to her physical world was the phone, still clutched in her hand. The screen blazed with a live stream notification. Live. Watch Alice's final show. She saw herself on the screen, not the person she was, but the thing she was becoming. Her features blurred and twisted into a parody of humanity, her eyes black voids, her smile too wide and jagged. The viewer count surged past 10 million. "Keep going. We see you. Bring us more." Alice realized with a sickening clarity that she wasn't just feeding the thing with her videos, she was helping it grow. Every view, every like, every new follower was another soul consumed, another victim pulled into the endless void. And now she was its messenger. Her phone vibrated one last time, and a new notification flashed on the screen. "Congratulations, Alice. You're trending." From that day on, Alice's account continued to grow. New videos appeared daily, even though she was no longer behind the camera. Her followers, oblivious to the horror lurking behind the screen, replicated her actions, their own reflections twisting and warping with each upload. And somewhere, in the vast darkness of the thing's domain, Alice watched, her face reflected in every screen, her screams echoing silently. She was famous now, forever.